Good morning. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the Spirit and serve the community. Whoever you are welcome here. Wherever you come from, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, you are welcome here. If you are struggling with burdens, you are welcome here. All of you is welcome here. It is good to be together this morning. We acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral lands First Universalist now stands. Welcome to the First Universalist Church, where we are worshiping in somewhat of a new but becoming familiar way. We are a community of seekers both online and in person. And we are choosing to worship in person with masks on. We have both physically distant options where folks can sit, as well as options that allow for more closeness. This new arrangement, let everyone know what you think. If you are here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making it to this worshiping community. We have a visitors form that can be found in the chat for our folks online and that can be found in your pews for people in person. Please fill out the form so that we can offer you a welcome beyond this worship service. Before we take a moment to turn to our neighbor, let us take a moment to turn towards the camera. Where is the camera? Okay. Let's take a moment to turn toward the camera and greet our online worshiping community. Please offer a wave. And if you are online, please pop into the chat to offer a greeting and to share your joys and sorrows. If you are here in person at First Universalist, let us take a moment to turn to our neighbor this morning and offer a greeting. Please respect people's physical distance and obtain consent before reaching out for a handshake or hug. We encourage elbow bumps and placing a hand over one's heart while making eye contact. Let us greet one another. And now let us sing together hymn number 8, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts. Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hand and let us work to shape our heart.
When Henry David Thoreau wrote that he went to Walden Pond to simplify his life, he realized even then that people were filling up their lives with a myriad of details which caused them to live lives of quiet desperation. That was in the mid-1800s. This scenario has not changed much. We tend to fill up our schedules with lists of to-dos and run from place to place to complete the tasks and then check them off our lists. We stay busy. But is that living life? What would happen if we cut down our tasks to 10 and, as Thoreau says, lump the rest? Well, most of us had that happen when the pandemic hit. Most of the things on our lists were crossed off for us, and many of us were left with much less to do and plenty of time on our hands to think about our lives. This proved terrifying for many people, which caused many mental health crises, much of which we are still dealing with today. Every time there is an uptick in cases, it re-stimulates the fear we felt during the pandemic. Why is it we fill up our lives with details? The transcendentalists would say it is because that keeps us from examining our lives. Thoreau did not want to live what was not life, but that requires thought on our part to know what life is. That requires us to look around and reflect on what we see. That requires us to get past the details of life so we can really observe. It requires us to stop. It requires us to be unafraid. It requires us to see life in the moment. And as Thoreau thought, not to hurry and waste our lives. Let us be open to life. Let us take the time to not miss the moment. Let us take this time to worship together. As Kathy Milch lights our chalice at First Universalist, and as many of you light a chalice in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice lighting words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. We come here on Sundays to take time to stop, to take time to put the details of our lives aside, to take time to see into the eyes of our church family, to take time to join our voices together in song and prayer, to take time to listen, to take time to search for meaning, to take time to reflect on life. This sacred place gives us the time to see life, so we give back to continue the cycle. You are invited to give online by scanning the QR code in your pews or to drop an offering in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity.
I invite you now into this reverent time of sharing the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place your hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place. We will place stones in the bowl. There may be some joys and concerns from people online. I don't have any to read this morning. All are invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat so that we may hear from the community gathered here. Let's drop one stone in the bowl for the people online and one for the people gathered in person this morning to represent all the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. I invite both those present and those online to enter with me now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Let every moment be a prayer. With every sip of tea, let your lips move in thanksgiving. Be fully present to every stroke of the hairbrush, every cup of milk you pour for children. Be present. Be present without judgment or regret, without plans or expectations, or even dreams. And every moment then becomes a prayer. Let us now sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. It seems odd to some and disturbing to others that I have set a tentative expiration date for myself. I'm calculating that I will die around 2039. That is the year that I will be 76. Now, in today's world, that sounds quite young. People routinely live into their 80s and their 90s these days. I am, I will say, at my current age of 59, in fairly good shape. At my last physical, my doctor pronounced me in good shape for my age. As far as I know, I have no significant health concerns. All of my blood work was good, my cholesterol, my blood sugar, my liver and kidney functions, all of that were normal. So, why, may you be asking, do I expect to be gone at the relatively young age of 76? Why, you might be asking, am I not anticipating living well into my 80s or 90s? Well, family history is probably the main reason. I have an amazing number of close relatives who all died at 76 or 77. My mother died at 76. My mother's only sibling, my Aunt Jean, died at 76. My maternal grandfather died shortly after turning 77. Now, there were a couple of anomalies. My maternal grandmother only made it to 73. My father's only sister died at 70. I had twin great aunts, Aggie and Helen. Aggie died at 75. And Helen was, guess what? 76. My great uncle Johnny died when he was 76. And even though we weren't related by biology, my other grandfather, my father's stepfather, who raised my father from the time he was 4 years old, that grandfather died when he was 76. My mother's cousin Helen died at age 76, and her cousin Donnie died at age 76 from opposite sides of her family, one from her mother's and one from her father's side. Our genes seem to be programmed with an amazing precision for living 76 or 77 years. Now, there are a few outliers. My father's mother did make it to age 81, but there are outliers in the other direction as well. My father's own birth father died at 25, and my father died at 43. Now, these family members all had something else in common other than dying around the age of 76. All of them were remarkably vigorous right until shortly before their deaths. In fact, so many of them were still working. My mother was working until 3 weeks before she died, and my Aunt Jean still had a job when she died. My great aunts, Aggie and Helen, were both still working as waitresses in busy diners on their 75th birthdays. My grandfathers both worked well past their 70th birthdays. My one grandfather was still working on a loading dock, lifting heavy boxes all day when he was 74. In every single case that I have mentioned, all of these relatives were healthy and vigorous until at most maybe a month or two before they died. My mother, for example, was sick for only 3 weeks. And all of them, without exception, looked and acted years younger than they were. People would meet my mother and they would say, "I can't believe that woman is 70. None of them ever had any hearing or vision issues. None of them showed any signs of dementia, and none of them had any mobility issues. In every single case, they were struck down suddenly by strokes or heart attacks or cancer or some other serious condition which went undetected until it was too late a couple of times. So the effect of the losses, all of these losses on our family, was similar to the kind of loss that you experience when you lose a young person, a person in the prime of their life who is taken too soon because they don't give us those normal warning signs that they are wearing out. So because they had all enjoyed this vigorous good health right up until the end, it was always a shock. So, summing all of that up, in my opinion, I do have at least some justification for expecting that there's a good chance I might die at 76 or thereabout. Given everything that I have described, it doesn't, to me anyway, seem unreasonable that I should at least seriously entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, I won't see my 80th birthday. And it seems reasonable to me to live with an awareness that my retirement likely will not last the 30 years that the New York State teachers' retirement system encourages us to plan for. But as reasonable as this idea seems to me, it upsets or angers nearly every single person I mention it to. And I usually get one of the following reactions. Why? Why on earth would you even think about such a thing? Or, oh my goodness, you are perfectly healthy. You'll live to be 90. Or, well, that's fine for you. I plan to live to be at least 100. Or some people have said to me, don't manifest it. Don't manifest it. If you expect that, it's going to happen. I have one friend in particular who gets extremely irritated whenever the subject comes up. She rolls her eyes. I know, I can feel it coming. I don't know why you want to die so soon, she'll say. You should be planning to live at least 20 years longer than 76. Now, I do understand in this case a little bit that this friend is 72, and so the idea of expiring at 76 hits a little closer to her than it does to me. However, I've gently mentioned this to her, and she vehemently denies that she has any fear at all of dying in the near future. Oh, no, she assures me every time. That doesn't worry me at all. In fact, I never think about death at all. Everybody in my family lives to their late 80s at least, and a lot of them have lived past 90. I eat healthy and I exercise. I plan to be at least 95 before I even think about dying. Now, let's change the subject, please. Yes, let's change the subject, please. Let's talk about anything but death. Let's not be morbid. And if the subject does inadvertently come up, let's please change the subject as quickly as possible. Without coming right out and saying it, in most cases, I know that most of my friends are thinking, as I said at the beginning, that there is something wrong with me. Something wrong with me that I not only talk readily and with relative ease about my impending death, but also that I seem willing and freely talk about maybe a timeline for it. And that I actually speculate, and that I'm willing to speculate that my death will likely come in the really not so distant future. 17 years is a short period of time, a span easily comprehended and pictured by people over 50, which is the age group that I usually have this conversation with. The idea that I openly plan for and even expect perhaps to be gone in this time frame is threatening and scary to people. This is why whenever the topic does come up, it is generally met with irritation or discomfort, followed by immediately being reassured that I will defy family history and that I'll compete in the 5K run when I'm 95. Or it's met with defiant proclamations that they themselves expect to live at least 20 years longer than I do. I promise I'll sing at your funeral, one of my friends who is a good deal older than me quips whenever this subject comes up. Regardless of which tack they take, the commonly held belief seems to be that death is distasteful, an affront to decency, unnatural in the extreme, an unwelcome intruder, something to be avoided and denied and fought against at all costs for as long as possible, no matter what. It seems that the mere acknowledgement that death awaits all of us is seen as a denial of our very birthright. And to openly plan for the possibility that I will quite likely expire a fair amount of time ahead of the outer limits of what is possible strikes many people as a betrayal of all that is good and decent. Death. I think it's safe to assume that few, if any of us, enjoy the prospect of it. Living creatures have a strong, very strong survival instinct. It's necessary, after all, in order to thrive. If you think about it, this instinct underlies most of our daily living. It guides our driving, our movements, our dietary choices. It's a big part of our financial decisions. It is inherent in our human interactions as we are always assessing who to trust and who not to trust. It's in the back of our minds when we read the news. Will this situation in the Ukraine threaten my well-being? How badly am I going to feel the impact of inflation? How much danger does COVID pose to me? As living animals, we are, from the womb, hardwired in this way. The unique dilemma for human beings is that we are, so far as we know at any rate, because we're not positive, but we think that we are the only living beings capable of understanding and anticipating death. And it scares us. In fact, if we are honest, it terrifies most of us to the very cores of our being. And so we all of us, myself included, push it away as my friends do, either by telling ourselves that we'll defy the odds and become centenarians, or as my friend Phyllis does, simply changing the subject as quickly as possible to anything else, anything but the dreaded topic of death. The belief that underlies these reactions is that death is a thoroughly unpleasant and even distasteful phenomenon, something almost foreign and unnatural, a fact that at the very best must be endured when we absolutely are forced to reckon with it, but something which should be ignored or denied whenever possible. No good comes from dwelling on death, a friend advised me a few years ago when I told him about my idea that I thought I might die around 76. It's morbid and self-indulgent to talk that way, and it serves no useful purpose. I should think, he said, that you would have more important and valuable things to think about. So my question for everyone is, do I? Is my friend right? Are there more important things, better things, more noble things to think about? Am I just being morbid and self-indulgent? Does thinking regularly about death or projecting a likely longevity limit serve no useful purpose at all? Or, on the contrary, can living with an abiding sense of death deepen our spirituality and help us live richer lives while we are alive? Well, it's probably obvious by now that I definitely think so. First and foremost, I will just say from a purely pragmatic standpoint, death, and I'll just warn you of all of this, death is the most significant and important event each and every one of us will ever experience. Nothing will change our lives more. Indeed, if you really think about it, everything else hinges upon it. So from that standpoint alone, it seems to me that ignoring it or sweeping our thoughts of it away when they occur are counterproductive to living a truly fulfilling life. Many of our worries and fears can be soothed by carefully planning for this inevitable reality and eventuality. Also, since, again, more bad news, since it is absolutely inevitable, just making peace with it, to me, just makes a whole lot of sense. Why expend energy dreading or denying something that is so utterly inescapable? But even more important than these pragmatic concerns, I believe that living with an abiding awareness that death awaits us can deeply enrich our spiritual lives. And it can imbue the time that we do have with a sacredness that is difficult to achieve if we don't live with an awareness of the limits of time. We have no doubt here this morning and online all had the experience of traveling someplace that we absolutely fall in love with, whether it's the mountains or the beach. We're on vacation. It's a brief and special interlude, a departure from our regular daily lives. We understand from the very beginning that our time there is brief and fleeting. And just like my idea that I will die at 76, we know our vacation has an expiration date. We know exactly how much time we will have there. Does knowing that we have maybe only 5 or 10 days in this special place ruin our enjoyment? Or does it enhance our enjoyment, our pleasure, and our experience of being there? Think about it. We don't skip watching the sunset over the ocean when we know that we are only at the beach for 5 nights, do we? We don't take it for granted or find an excuse not to watch it or become so absorbed in watching Judge Judy that we let the opportunity slip past us. Of course not. We make time for that sunset because we understand from the very beginning, we only have 5 sunsets to see. And we understand that if we miss one, we only have 4 left, at most. And while I admit that this example is probably a little bit cliche, I do believe that it illustrates the point rather nicely. Each and every single one of us, every single person born, has a finite number of sunsets to watch. And when that number is used up, that's it. Immersed in the busy routines of our lives, it can become very easy to lose sight of that fact. Most of us live lives that have a rather high degree of routine, repeated over long periods of time. Thoroughly embedded as we are in the familiar rhythms and patterns of our lives, it's easy, very easy, to lose sight of the fact that it doesn't all go on forever. That there is an expiration date, and that for most of us, maybe all of us, it is sooner than we may feel it is. So to the extent that we are able, reminding ourselves each and every day that this might be the very last day that we ever enjoy coffee with our spouse or a friend, or the last time we walk our dog, or the final trip we ever make to a dear friend's house, each of these things becomes an act of profound appreciation, which elevates these experiences from the mundane to the sacred. Far from being morbid, as my friends have suggested, this simple awareness enriches our appreciation and enhances our experience of everything that we do. Routine occurrences can seem absolutely miraculous when they are savored with the knowledge that there's not an endless string of them expanding out into the future ad infinitum. Staying in tune with the fact that we will die and living with an abiding awareness of death is also a wonderful way to keep things in perspective. How important is this really? My mother always had a wonderful way of doing this. When I'd be upset about a failed quiz or a ruined sweater or not getting that coveted job that I interviewed for, she would always ask me, in the overall picture of life, how important is this really? Will you be thinking about this on your deathbed? In almost every single case, the answer is no. Think about it. Think about the things that upset and bother you, and then ask yourself that question. Hold it up to that standard. In almost all cases, I think most of us would say no most of the time, wouldn't we? So much of what we spend our time worrying about and fretting about is really of no consequence at all when it is viewed like this in the very grand scheme of things. My friend Gloria said something a few years ago which got me thinking about it in another way as well. Gloria is a lifelong hippie, radical activist to the core. She has marched and protested and boycotted more than anyone else I have ever known for racial justice, against income inequality, for LGBTQ rights, for environmental causes, for a just healthcare system, against many wars, for refugees. Gloria has done it all. When she was well over 60, she spent many nights downtown right across the street here at the Occupy movement camp, sleeping on the ground, helping to feed people, and standing up many times to the police. She never, ever shies away from putting her beliefs in action. But a year or so ago, she surprised me. She said this: "I'm starting to realize that I'm only one person and I am getting old. It finally dawned on me a little while back that I only have so much energy and so much time to live, and that these problems that I worry and am concerned about are not all going to be fixed while I'm alive. But," she went on to say, "that's okay, because I am only one tiny being in the vastness of time and space. I can't do it all alone, and it can't be accomplished on my time frame." Gloria also told me that a lot of people were upset and discouraged when they heard her say this. They saw it as capitulation. The old die-hard radical was finally throwing in the towel. But she was quick to assure me that that wasn't the case. Instead, what she told me is that this awareness has helped her narrow and deepen her focus to just one or two causes. It also made her see that passing the torch to other people was crucial. "I can offer perspective and wisdom," she said, "but younger people must step up and do the work. And because they have a different perspective and they've had different experiences than me, they have a lot to offer that I don't. Besides," she concluded, "we have to balance our anger and our sense of injustice with a measure of inner peace if we want to stay sane and if we want to continue to have anything at all to offer." The realization, she said, that I won't live forever, and maybe not even much longer, to be honest, is helping me to do that. It has definitely helped me put my ego in check. Conversation has stayed with me. And like Gloria, we are all finite beings, all limited by time. We never know when the end will come for ourselves or for those we love. I personally have come to see this awareness as a gift rather than a burden. Rather than experiencing thoughts of death as welcome intrusions, unwelcome, I should say, instead of seeing thoughts of death as unwelcome intrusions into my happiness, I actually have come to take comfort from them in many ways. Comfort from knowing that it's looming somewhere out there on the horizon in a time frame that's short enough that I have some ability to comprehend it. Like Gloria, I feel a sense of relief when I take time to appreciate the fact that I am just one small dot on the screen of life, and that it's not even remotely possible for me to fix everything that needs to be fixed in my lifetime. Rather than making me complacent and inactive, it energizes me to focus fully on the process every day, rather than the outcome. Understanding and knowing that so many, if not all, of the struggles that I worry about will still be going on long after I'm gone, and that new ones continue to pop up. My job and your job is not to fix everything. It is simply to make a contribution. And if you think about it this way: most causes are actually damaged and not enhanced when an individual's ego becomes too big, when the cause gets linked too closely to that individual, when that person is seen as utterly indispensable. When this happens, the individual loses sight of the work, and the cause can lose its way. We've all seen that happen. So it might not be a surprise by now, after all I've said, that I have developed a bit of a reputation among my friends for being the one to bring up the topic of death. People joke about it sometimes. Some of them find it amusing. A lot of them find it irritating. And I think definitely a few of them find it threatening. But death has been a strong presence in my life from an early age. As I've mentioned before, when I was 12, my sister was killed in a car accident. When I was 13, my father died of a heart attack. When I was 16, my grandfather, who lived nearby and I saw nearly every day, pretty much, died suddenly of a stroke. And then when I was 18, my grandmother, to whom I was very, very close, died suddenly, likely by suicide, I will say, although no one ever knew absolutely for sure and no one ever talked about it. In all four cases, these were very sudden deaths. And all of these people, all four of them, were essentially fine 1 minute and gone the next. So between the ages of 12 and 18, I lost 4 primary family members to sudden death. And while this gives me a fairly significant trauma history, to be sure, it has given me gifts as well. From a very early age, I understood that life was a precarious and precious thing. I learned not to take people for granted, and I learned to never assume that I had all the time in the world to do whatever I wanted to do. In many ways, on the downside, these traumas made me more cautious than I otherwise would have been, to be sure, but they also made me grateful and appreciative in a way that I might not have been otherwise. This training has served me well in my current life. My partner, Michael, has a very serious heart condition, one that cannot be cured. Currently, there is no cure for it. And as every time we go to the doctor risks us that his biggest risk is that he's at risk for sudden death. Talk about something that makes you worry. He has an implanted pacemaker and defibrillator to protect himself, but it's still a scary condition. In some ways, though, and we've talked about this a lot, in some ways, it's a gift as well. We live in constant awareness that our time together is precious and never, ever to be taken for granted. I can say from my end that this awareness helps me let go of many of the irritations and conflicts that we all know are part of married life. I think that I can honestly say that I appreciate him every day in a way that I might not if I didn't live with an abiding awareness of the fact that each and every day could be our last together. And the only difference between my situation and others is that I have a specific diagnosis and a reason to think that. But it's equally true of all of us. Every single one of us, it could be our last day or our spouse's last day or our best friend's last day. And I believe that far from being morbid and depressing, I think that this appreciation in the long run can bring us more joy than sorrow. Many people in the congregation, I think, have met my dog, Ollie, who had a big health scare a couple weeks ago and almost died. As hard as it is to believe, he's going to be 9 this summer. And in the past year, besides this health scare, he's rapidly turning gray, and he definitely has less energy than he used to have. The gray hairs, every time I look at them, are a good reminder to appreciate and cherish him as much as I possibly can. So, my message this morning is quite obvious and hardly original, but important nonetheless. Life doesn't last forever. Death awaits us all. I may very well not die at 76 after all. I may defy the family odds and I may live to be 85 or 90. I also could go much sooner than 76. We never know. None of us ever know. But setting a tentative expiration date for myself, I can tell you, has helped my spiritual life in immeasurable ways. It is a good and solid reminder of all of the points that we have covered here this morning. By living in an awareness of my mortality, I believe that I am more appreciative of the many, many gifts that my daily life holds. And my daily life holds many gifts, as I'm sure each and every one of you can say as well. I am more appreciative of the ones I love, and it helps me a little bit to keep my ego in check by being in touch with my smallness and my relative insignificance in the scheme of things. It's also a relief when you really can internalize that. This week, I encourage each and every one of you to take some time and contemplate this idea for yourselves and what this could mean for you in deepening your own spiritual life. The most recent death in my family was my mother's cousin, Ruth Ann. She died this past fall. She lost her husband a year ago, but she seemed to be doing really well. When her daughter spoke with her in the morning, she was fine. She was cleaning the kitchen, and then she planned that afternoon to run some errands. When she didn't answer her phone at dinner time, her daughter went over to her house and found that she had peacefully died sometime that afternoon in her favorite chair. Ruth Ann had just turned 77. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth, and we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our time is done, the memories we've shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together, and with the right to grow, we have the gift to believe that peace within our living an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see even to question truly is an answer. Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame this morning. Let us read together the words printed on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside the walls to the world we live in until we are together again. As we close this service, I invite you to place your hand over your heart. If you are joining us online, I invite you to turn your settings to gallery view and look upon the faces that are here with you. For those of you in this room, take a moment to look around and appreciate those who are here with you today. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Sunday afternoon help to restore us, restore our connections to one another, our sense of hope, beauty, and fun in this world, our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other with love and joy if we are to soulfully survive the world's mayhem. And let the people of the church say together, Amen.